Look at that, my line swimming off. Here we go. You're rolling, Richie? There he is.
So far.
Oh, he's off under that pontoon, and this is where that long, soft rod could help. Just keep the hooks in it.
All right, g'day Daiwa fans, Tom Slater here. It's a bit of a different video today. I'm down on the edge of Manly with Steve Morgan from ABT and Fishing Monthly. So got a whole bunch of the new Infeet rods here, and Steve's been using the current range for the last 3 years, and I guess probably a good place to start is you've obviously had the previous gen for the last 3 years and been using them. What's been your thoughts on the range so far?
Yeah, well, initially you came to me with this new range of Infeet rods, and I was familiar with the brand Infeet because I've heard about it before. There was the old iteration of Infeet rods, which were my style of rods, a little bit softer, a little bit more finessey than what was on the market. So, and you said, I've got an Infeet to suit all your styles. And of course, I don't believe that sort of stuff straight away. But what Tom did was we went and we worked on a list, didn't we? I think I gave you 9 different lures, which were my go-to lures that I would use throughout a tournament season. And you said, yep. You had rods for all of them. And the way it happened, Daiwa, naming sponsor of the ABT Tour, I was happy to bundle all my old rods up, put them in the side of the shed, and let's run with these new Infeets. And I can tell you now that sort of 3 years down the track, you've kicked the goal, mate. You've done it. I was a skeptic and you turned me around.
Gear down?
Yep.
So you can see
yeah, that's very fast taper.
Very fast.
Yep.
But then if you lift on that, it's got...
So Tommy, I haven't really done that much fishing in Sydney Harbour after May. We've always held the Australian Open between sort of January and May. That water looks pretty cold at the moment, and if I know anything about yellowfin, in warm water they're looking up and they want to eat top waters and shallow sort of stuff. But when it's cold, they start looking down. Even on the Gold Coast at this time of year, they're hugging the bottom and they're looking down. So is it true that we're probably going to want to fish more deeper lures tomorrow than shallow stuff?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I'm probably the same as you. When it gets cold here, I start kind of looking elsewhere and chasing other species. But the last couple of months, definitely the fish have been a little bit more timid. You're not getting them on top waters, on the high tide over the rocks. You're not getting them eating a plastic as soon as you skip it under the dock. You're fishing a vibe or a blade or something like that on a mooring block or under a boat or a bridge pylon. And getting them deep. So that's probably what we'll end up doing a lot of tomorrow.
So what I think when we're picking an arsenal for tomorrow, I think the first thing I would probably grab is my favourite, my 7'8", the crab rod, the mussel rod. Crabs and mussels, both sinking lures. Love to fish them on the straight through fluorocarbon in this crystal clear water. In wintertime, water gets clear as well. So if I was going to pick some rods for tomorrow, I suppose firstly I'd go, I want to throw the cranker crab, I want to throw it on, or a mussel, I want to throw it on that rod that gives me the control. I suppose the second rod I want to fish, and is the one that I love, is that 7'5", that straight through fluorocarbon rod tomorrow, because if we get out there and I can see fish on the live sonar or the 2D sonar and I can't get them to bite, I am scaling down. Not only because they're all your lures I got here, the fact is I want to buy that bite and get them on there. So everything that crab rod can do in that 3 to 6 pound fluorocarbon, this thing can do on the 2 to 3 pound fluorocarbon. Yeah, and whether it's a stick minnow, whether it's a mussel, whether it's a crab, I'm going to have that in my arsenal to fish those deep baits there as well. And of course, the third rod that I reckon I'm going to fish is going to be, of course, Morgo's favourite crankbait rod, because no matter what time of year, if you get a nice high tide up on a bridge, the bream will start looking up and think what crab, what stuff is in that bridge pylon there. So a deep diving crankbait, I probably wouldn't be using shallow diving crankbaits with the water that cold, but a deep diving crankbait with that regular action rod. Let's get some real nice casts in close and see how we go. The other thing that's going to play in the harbour, of course, always is moored boats. In summertime, again, a lot of fish can be up underneath, pecking on the bottom, but what I've learnt with the live sonar is those fish up there might only move 10 feet, but it's downwards. Yep. So we can just sink those baits into those fish and hopefully get a few. Like, I've seen a lot of tournaments over the years. I notice in Sydney Harbour in wintertime, the numbers go down, but the size often goes up. So I'm pretty excited about maybe tying onto some fish that challenge us tomorrow. Yeah,
look, I'm personally looking forward to it. I might learn how to be a little bit closer the next time the Open rolls around. So I'm very looking forward to getting to fish a couple of boats and seeing how you schooled us all earlier this year. So
bring it on. Bring on Sydney, bring on the light line, and bring on throwing someone else's lures on 2 pound line. down. On a commandeered boat here in Middle Harbour in Sydney, and the whole aim of today is to test out the new Infeet 23 rods. I'm really keen on seeing how technique specific these rods are. The last ones I had my favourite rod from my favourite technique. Let's see how the new ones match up.
That's it.
It's someone else's lure, I get to use it, and I get to lose it. So the water temp is just under 14 degrees at the moment, and it's probably a little bit cool for the bream to be up on the bridges, and I can see them down lower in the water column on the sounder. So during today, I suppose we'll be following those fish and trying to find out where they're sitting. But first impressions of the 7'4" regular action is love it. Like all of these regular action rods, don't try and throw them too hard. It's important to be accurate, just that gentle, let the rod load up. You'll get the accurate cast you want, and importantly, when the fish goes on, you'll keep those treble hooks in. First one, I like it. So one of my favourite rods in the old Infeet range was the Aqua rod at Tom. It was a 7'3", tippy, strongish in the butt, but you tell me you've gone. Let's get into some aqua rods, huh?
Aqua
I
rods.
love my aqua fishing, and I reckon half the non-boaters in Australia love it too, because I saw a lot of them on the Gold Coast at a recent tournament with the packets. You know, when you see the little the packet of aquas, this is what you got to reach for.
Yeah, and so this is the redesign of what you're currently throwing for aquas. So in the Infeet Z, so the middle series 732 fast action light spin, so 732 LFS, and again, you know, as I spoke about before, we've refined these tapers, refined the technology. So the Z series has been upgraded from the HVF Nanoplus blank to SVF Nanoplus. Again, physically lighter than before, generally around 5 to 6 grams per similar model rod. They're lighter than the previous models, and anytime you can make a rod that's already sub probably 80 grams, the previous rod, you're taking 5 grams out of that, you're taking a large percentage of the rod's weight away, and you're making it more sensitive. So
I find with fishing with aquas, there's two really important things to do. You want to be able to get an accurate cast. Aquas skip when they're rigged unweighted, so you want enough tip in it to be able to skip it. If I want to skip it under a dock 10 or 15 feet and get into that nasty country, it's got to be able to do it. But more importantly, when I set that hook, it's really important to have the guts in the blank to be able to put that hook in. I probably lose more fish on aquas by hooks not going in properly than I do by getting busted off by throwing the world's most suicidal cast. So, and I find this 7'3" that I had initially does that. You're telling me this one's going to do it even better. I'm really looking forward to doing that. My old aqua rods used to be too stiff. I would err on the side of getting that hook in, but they wouldn't have the tip that you need to do it. And in response, I would go for the old style edging rods or the old Mebaru style rods, some of the Asian small lure rods, but nothing had that combination. Glad that you've got that technique specific aqua rod now, because if you're fishing it on your 7-foot fast taper rod, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're going to put the hooks in better with a slightly longer rod.
Yeah, 100%. I think we were talking off camera before about the length of rod. If you think about, if you've got a lure, you know, 20 or 30 metres out in front of the boat, and you've got a longer rod, you've got longer length there to move more line with the same sweeping, you know, hook set. If you've got a 7'6" rod compared to a 6'6", it's not you're not moving a feet extra line, it's the feet over the swing arc of that rod, you're moving that extra line. So you set better hooks with a longer rod, you can obviously set hooks at a longer distance easier with aquas, you know as well as me, you skip it in there, a lot of the time it's instant, the line starts shooting off. So.
That's right, and 100% you're going to lose more by having them fall off than break off, so hit them hard.
So one that I think is worth showing is probably one of the new rods into the Infeet EX range, and this is one actually based off what originally was an old Mebaru style action. So this one has the Megatop solid technology, so very soft, light tip. So again, it can easily load an aqua or an unweighted plastic. and skip that with that light tip, but then more powerful than what you've been using in the past down the butt. So if you are setting a hook at a really long distance, this one's even got a little bit more power than the aqua rod you've been using, but it's more extreme in both ends. So it's a little bit stronger down here, but with the mega top, it's also a little bit softer at the tip. So
what you're telling me is this is going to be my new favourite aqua rod, and I'm going to retire that to something else.
Possibly. I think when you use them both, I think you'll find applications where they both shine. So.
And look, the aqua rod itself, I found I did have other applications for it. If I wanted to throw a top order a long way, I found that I reached for that 7'3" aqua. I cut the aqua off. I put on a walking top order in Moreton Bay, for instance, and I could make that 35 metre cast with the wind and have the control over the line to walk a dog that far out. So you know, throwing any of those pencil style lures, distance is really important, especially in the clear water. Don't overlook the aqua rod as a top order rod as well, because I must admit I do two things with it.
Yep.
Yep, in summertime, want to be straight out of that spot. And when I pre-fished it, I had one big one come out and charge at aqua along here, and I go, oh, well, they're here, I'll leave it. But all right, I reckon let's go down and we'll do a moored boat or three. So, Tom, if I was to pick one rod out of the Infeet range from the last range, it was a 7'5".
I guess the next one you had is probably, I think you said if you could have one, this would be the one that you choose, and this is what started as the stick minnow rod, but I guess, you know, over your experience the last 3 years has evolved into a bit of an all-rounder for you.
That's it, and look, if we were to ask anyone watching this video what would be their favourite rod, I'd say probably over 50% of them would say a 7-foot fast action plastic throwing rod. Well, if you know my fishing style, I'm more a treble hook oriented guy, so for me that was never going to be the choice. I like fishing finesse. I like hooking the fish first and then worrying later on about how I get them out and how I catch them. So I find that I use this rod, which is the 7'5", initially the stick minnow rod. Man, I find I use it with that 2 pound and 3 pound straight through.
Yeah, so that's the 7'5" ultralight fast action solid tip model. So again, we've upgraded the solid tip, now has the mega top solid. So just Daiwa's unique mega top technology. Upgraded the blank to Compile X, so it's even lighter than your previous model physically.
Yeah, it's lighter in the hand.
Yep, and very, very sensitive. So that's originated as kind of your stick minnow rod, but I think you said you've kind of evolved.
Expanded.
You've used it in all sorts of different ways now. So.
Well, let's stay true to form, and I've got a stick minnow on the end of it now. We've got 3 pounds straight through fluorocarbon. Got a couple of likely looking boats here, and let's see if we can put a bend in it.
Sounds good.
There it is, and as usual, the first thing you know with a stick minnow
is when you're hooked up.
is when you wind in and it's on, and I'm cool with that. This will be the first bream of the day, and as expected, a little bit deeper. I had to sink that one a long way down.
Yeah, you were waiting for that for a long time, weren't you?
It's not a giant, but...
Yeah, look, the net's under about 58 rods in this rod locker.
So we'll do this Bassmaster style, hey, with no net.
He's not a bad fish too.
What do you reckon, 3 pound? I'll try and pole him. Spitting out weed, that guy.
Really?
So they're quality yellowfin in Sydney Harbour. As a Brisbane angler, we don't often get them nice and fat and thick like that, but every fish in this joint seems to be like it, and every single hook in his mouth with a stick minnow. And the 7'5", mate, I love it. I love the shock absorbing power of it. It casts a long way. It's light in the hand. I can keep it all day. I'm keeping this one, sorry.
That one's going back on the plane.
Scanning there when the lure's sinking, and if I can't see the lure, I normally see one fish just sprint off. I go, guarantee he's got my lure, so I'll just wind in. Yep, and he's on. I reckon with stick minnows, sometimes they've got it for 20 seconds before I even know they're hooked.
Yeah. You know the ones. You're the boat master.
We're going.
Both in the sense of driving the boat and knowing which boat's the fish.
Knowing which one's the fish. Well, I did spend 4 days in here narrowing it down, so. Yeah, it looks all right. Look at that big thing on there, look at him.
Oh,
is that a bream? That's not a bream, is that a barra?
I don't know what
that looks like a barra. That 100% looks like a barra.
That's a barramundi.
That's what I was going to see in Sydney Harbour.
Yeah.
I'll try and catch him. Let me just throw this on his head. He wants to be your friend.
How's that? Well, that's the first barra I've seen in Sydney Harbour.
What would the sports bet odds have been on this morning? Oh, you're going to catch a barra. Here he comes. You got him. Oh, look at him.
I just had to have one more cast just in case. Literally something pretty cool. First, I've heard of it before in Sydney Harbour, but little barramundi came around this pole and Morgo pointed it out. Thought it was a
triple tail.
Triple tail, yeah. It kind of looked like that, and then we got closer and it was a little barramundi about 40 centimetres long or something, just sitting on that pole. He was not very keen on eating. He seemed very lethargic. He wasn't very spooky at all. So I'll put that one in the memory bank. Come back and catch a barra one day.
You can come to a place like Sydney Harbour here, and there are literally thousands of boats all over the place. But I like the boats that are sitting in shallow water, and my theory is those fish that are cruising along the bank, when the tide runs out, sun comes up, they push down to the first bit of structure, and that's usually the shadow of a boat. So I've picked up the 7'8", the crab rod, which is also morphed into the mussel rod, Tom, and I noticed some cosmetic differences. They're more rounded grips. There's a little thumb pad up there, but what else has happened in the blank? And this was a project that I was really interested in working with you on. It was the crab rod. We didn't have a crab specific rod, and subsequently it's become the muss rod, hasn't it? Because the muss wasn't around when we started it, but for me, this does both of them. How have you improved something that I bloody love already?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you might have rung me one day and you'd come home from a holiday and you'd bought a Gekabidjan adging style rod from overseas, and you said you really liked it for crabs. It's that kind of new style of fishing crabs, the kind of short pitch casting motion where the length in the rod blank allows you, to have that pendulum motion.
Yep.
And so that's kind of where the original crab rod was born. And then obviously over the last 3 years of you fishing it, you said to me that sample you bought had the solid graphite megatop, Daiwa megatop technology. The first iteration of the crab rod didn't have that in the current range, but the new one we've integrated megatop now. So we've got that solid graphite tip from about the third guide down here. So that's solid graphite, bite detection increase, so that the fish can actually take the lure without too much pressure being applied to the line.
Yep.
And so okay, fish is on there, I can wind down and set the hook.
Now, the one thing with crab fishing is that is something I nearly exclusively use straight through fluorocarbon with, and depending on where you're fishing it, if I'm fishing in really open country, I might fish 3 pounds straight through. Like in the Australian Open this year with the muss, it was 3 pounds straight through because I wanted to buy those bites. It was hard to get bites, I wanted to buy them. But if I could up the line on this to even 6 and 7 pound where I'm fishing close into bridges, I found that the taper on this rod handled both of them. Anywhere between 3 and 7 pound for both that crab and the muss, it was the rod for me. Of course, the longer and sort of softer that rod is, the more chance it's got of keeping those small treble hooks in. If I look at a muss, they've only got those little number 14. Some of the big ones may be number 12 trebles, but they're so small. You lose a lot more fish pulling hard at them than you do with any other way. So for me, this has been a bit of a godsend. The original prototype, or the ones I had originally, had really long handles on them.
Yep.
And these ones have a much shorter handle, gives you much more working length of the rod, and become one of my favourites. So I've got 2 of these on board at the moment, of the old style, one with the crab, one with the mussel, and they are in my boat wherever I am in Australia.
Yeah, awesome.
So we've tried a run of boats that's normally pretty good with the muss, but no fish on those. So we're going to refine our pattern down even more. Same rod, the 7'8", on some of the edge pontoons. Now as the tide drops down, bright sunny day, those fish should drop into that structure, and let's try and feed them a muss. Oh, look at that, with my line swimming off. Here we go. You're rolling, Richie? There he is.
So far.
Oh, he's off under that pontoon, and this is where that long, soft rod could help. Just keep the hooks in it. No. Come on, mate. You can do it. You can get out of there.
Got him?
It's a big fish too. It's a big fish.
Oh yeah, he's a good one.
That extra length, just holding it underneath, helped to get him out. He's nowhere near done yet though, but check out the action on it. You can 3 pound, well this might be 4 on this.
Yeah, 4 pound on that one. You can pull pretty hard on 4 pound when you need to.
That balance, isn't it? All right, we're going to land it for us, Tommy?
Yep.
The human net. That's a proper Sydney one there, isn't it? On the muss. And there you go.
Proper one.
That is why you go to Sydney Harbour. In wintertime, you don't catch as many, but they're often giants like that. And he wanted to crutch that mutts, the 7'8". It was in the weed. He was under the pontoon. He was around the pile. We got him out. So there you go. That's what wintertime fishing in Sydney is all about. Just the big fish. That one came off a pontoon, and the long rod did exactly what it was supposed to. It kept the line intact and it kept the trebles in. And even though we didn't have a net on deck, we still got it on board. So Sydney Harbour, unreal. One of the good things about fluorocarbon is you don't have to tie a leader when you're fishing straight through, but what you do have to do is after you catch a good fish like that, you have to take off the little rasp bit of line at the end and retie the knot. Takes 60 seconds to do, very worth doing. So we're going to take the opportunity as this tide drops out to fish some of the shady parts in this bay, and to me the shady parts are under the moored boats. Shallower water here, the muss boats we fished were 20 to 30 foot deep. These are sort of 10 to 15, so it's the Kadachi, it's the blue, the regular action Infeet, and see if we can hook it up.
So as Morgo's throwing the crankbait along, I've just got one of the Infeet S range, 6'10" fast taper, and a little bait junkie on a jig head. So I'll fish it a bit deeper underneath the boat, bounce along the bottom, see if I can't pick up a bream or even a flatty or a whiting or something in this bay. So give it a go.
Bite?
Yeah, that was a bite there.
It's a bite.
Yeah, little fella. Very little. Oh, look at them all.
There's his mates there too. Look at them all coming out.
Yeah, there's a few on there. Just a little one on the plastic. We were just saying we'll fish the sunny side. I'll fish the sunny side with the plastic and let it sink down level, and then we'll swing around to the shady side and let Steve throw the Kadachi along the shallow side. So undersized one, but there was plenty following him out. So.
Yeah, plenty of mates, didn't he? I'm sure they get a good feed off this boat occasionally. So any time that I'm throwing a crankbait, which is a lot of places all over Australia, anything from like the little rolling cranks to an atomic crank, anything which gets to that right depth and has that right amount of searching action, I want to throw on a rod which again doesn't pull the hooks out of the fish's mouth. Also, I find when you're casting a crankbait, if you have to like whip it too hard, they'll tumble in the air. You know, I always find, and I learnt this by fishing soft rods, a really gentle casting style where it loads the rod up and it sort of catapults it out, gives you naturally longer distance with any of those hard bodies. So when I'm fishing a bridge pylon, for instance, and I need a nice accurate cast, I want it to go 10 metres, but I want it to land right on that edge. I go to that soft action rod, and of course the bonus is it keeps the hooks in as well at the same time. So I know Taka Kawasaki, you know, your champion Daiwa non-boater, he says blue rods for anything with the trebles on. I think I've expanded more on that, but as a rule of thumb, if you're throwing a treble bait, you can't go wrong with one of the blue Infeets.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about the castings, because some of the the feedback I've had from non-boaters that have been on my boat is they pick up, I'll give them a crankbait rod to try, and they try and really whip it out there. They do that really fast, lots of wrist action in the cast, and as you say, the rod's so soft and parabolic that as you say, you really need to do kind of a nice smooth motion, no quick turns of angles or changes of action to really get the most out of casting a really soft rod like that.
They were probably used to using a 7-foot fast action rod, and they merely have to sort of pendulum it a little bit to get that cast out. You don't need to do that with the blue rods, and just sometimes less is more when it comes to casting, especially with accuracy, because I'm as guilty as anyone as smashing that crankbait on the bridge pylon, but the less I can do that, the less I spook the fish, the less I wreck my crankbaits, and the more I catch.
The more fish you catch.
That's important for me.
So yeah, in this one now, as we were talking off camera before, we've kind of developed a version of that similar style rod in the EX range, which is personally my go-to rod for fishing spike 44s. My second place, I can see where I caught the fish in the open earlier this year, literally behind us.
Yep.
And I was throwing around what was a prototype of this rod at the time. So, I guess what we've done in the Infeet range now is no matter what price point you want to spend, we've got options for you, whether it's the S series at $199, or if you want the bells and whistles of the EX range, you can get technique specific rods and get, you know, an action that's similar to, you know, Morgo's favourite crankbait rod or my favourite crankbait rod from the S series up. So that's been one of the other kind of key focuses from us with the redevelopment.
So with the textbook way to fish these boats with the crankbait, shady side, you want to get it nice and close to the edge of that boat, and then either a straight retrieve for yellowfin, or even some guys like that little sort of shaky retrieve. You're relying on there being a school of fish under there, and they want to come out and compete for it. So use the treble hook lure, use the straight through fluorocarbon, use that regular rod to keep the hooks in it. Like that. Some of them I like a pause and look at those fish coming out under it.
Wow, yeah.
It's about 3 or 4 more there.
A few with him.
A few of his mates, and I'll leave that in the water to see if that's a proper.
Yeah,
that's a proper
he's
one.
Get you in that wreck.
Just sink that down. While that fish is in the water, that second one might be able to jump on. But that was textbook, wasn't it? The school of fish, they were fighting over it, and even when I was winding this one in, the school was trying to dispossess the fish. So another legal fish and good condition in Sydney. What's you throwing? Legal, just legal. So you can see how important that the cushioning effect of the rod is, this light fluorocarbon. On a straight pull you can break it really easily, but given all of that bend in the system there, you can hear the drag working in conjunction with that, with the soft rod, and all of a sudden the brim's not going to get away. It's just pulling. There you go, another fish towards the Sydney limit, and Infeet rods are ticking the boxes. So we've caught a few on the moored boats now, and how pretty is that reek up here in Middle Harbour, but we've got jobs to do. Want to catch some on blades and plastics now, so we're going to head down the system a little bit. So we're finally into some of our traditional winter patterns. You know, late in the morning, secret location, Spit Bridge. Just trying to catch some deeper fish. Tom, you're fishing a plastic here on a jig head?
Jig head rigged plastic. You got a little Steve's metal blade.
Yep, and I'm doing it on the 7.5, my favourite, but yours is more the generic plastic rod?
Yeah, so 712 LFS, probably one of the more popular rods in the series, just that kind of do everything all rounder.
Straight through versus braid, let's see how it goes.
I can see one.
That's a little pinky, I reckon. It's on a blade anyway. No?
Snagged it.
It's a wrasse in the ass. So the most exciting part of the Spit Bridge was watching it go up and down. It's an amazing feat of engineering, but no winter fish schooled up down here, so for us it's back up the system, and we're going to try some aquas on some pontoons as that tide drops right down. We'll give it a go. So let's go through the theory of this, and it's setting up quite nicely now apart from the cold water. We've got the EcoGear Aqua, which is a specifically developed biobait for the brim, weightless on a worm hook, and that gives it a horizontal sink. So it doesn't sink like that with a jig head, it sits and it normally gets a little bit of a wobble as it sinks down. So it's a real finesse bait. We've got it on about a 5-pound leader there with some braided line. It's going to be a real test for the solid tip on these rods, because that's a real light bait. This is a 40mm one. I normally use a 50, so we'll see if we can deliver it and then get whatever bites it out of that country. So I can feel the lack of weight in that compared to a 50mm, but I can adjust the cast now. We'll get it in there. And of course, in the bright sunny conditions, brim want to sit in the shade, so we have the shade patches under those horizontal pontoons. That's where they're going to be.
Just like that.
First cast, all right. Is that a first cast of an aqua on my new aqua rod, Tommy?
It is.
Not a giant, but again, this is by Sydney standards. Heavy enough in the butt to pole that in, and he definitely ate the 40, mate. I've always said the 40s are good. But he swallowed that bait. Strong butt to send it in, and we're going 100% with hookups at the moment. I like it.
So you said you normally use the 50mm one, you got the 40 on there. I'm noticing you're still casting that, quite a long way.
Yeah, it's getting the job done. It's I'm impressed with how well it is casting.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday, and the difference that 45-degree carbon makes to the rod, reduces or resists that twisting, and puts all the effort of the rod unloading itself into unloading very quickly and into the cast. So that's that X45 doing its job.
Yep, exactly what he said. They just cast better.
I reckon I got a bite on that cast.
So one of the final techniques we want to try today is I actually want to catch fish on a jig head rig plastic, but as usual, I can't do it the normal way. It has to be my special, I call it the WA rig. That's a bait junkie minnow on a hidden weight system, but rigged to swim a little bit more horizontally than that vertical drop. And braid leader combo, got the 7'1". Let's see what Tommy's done with that one.
Yeah, just a couple of decent.
Has he got to eat it? Yeah, they're all decent. When you cast, they spook.
Yeah.
That arm movement, yeah. Is this a second size up play? Go. Finesse. No movement, just let him eat it. He's got it now? In his mouth? Or he's got it in his mouth. Right.
Yeah, got it.
There you go. Look at them all.
There was heaps on that.
That was proper sight fishing there, Tom.
Saw them all.
You notice how long he took to eat it, even though there was a scrum of bream. I'm just going to take us out from that pontoon a bit.
On the risky critter. He coached me through that. He said, leave it there, leave it there.
Don't move it. Yeah, because when they're not red hot like that, they've got to make their mind up to eat it.
He's a solid little, not massive, but he's
right.
the second best one of the day. So let's do the Bassmaster for me, Steve. Okay. Respool it.
So you got one hook in him too. I don't want him to fall out.
Bassmaster.
I don't know, it's probably as big as the one before, mate. That's a great hook set in the corner of the mouth, and eventually you deliver the lure right to where they needed to eat it.
Yeah, my casting's been a bit rubbish today, but finally got one in there, and a little risky critter right in the corner.
A big Sydney Harbour clunker.
That one's on the Infeet S, so the entry to the range, 6'10" fast action. Great little close quarters, kind of structure rod, good for underhand skip cast, that little bit shorter length. And braid leader setup and a 1/30th bait junkie jig head. Nice structured dwelling bream like that.
So, typical Sydney winter bream fishing, wasn't it, Tommy? Not heaps of numbers today, but man, quality fish. Check out some of those crackers we got today. Any tournament angler or social angler will love them.
Yeah, no, probably needed a couple of these earlier this year in the open, mate. I might have pushed you a little bit harder, but yeah, great day in Sydney Harbour, and a couple of the best ones from today, fishing the new 23 Infeet rods.
Damn it, I couldn't find anything wrong with them. I'll have to try harder in the next few months. If I want to buy good tools to enjoy myself when I'm on the water, get the right tools to do it, and you will never look back.
We've gone through, I guess your go-to rods. We've got a whole bunch more there. As I said, one thing that we've really focused on this year with the redevelopment is that we've got not a duplication of an action in all price points, but a variation to that action. So if you like Morgo's crankbait rod, but you might like it a little bit shorter. well, make sure you check out the other ranges, because you know you might have something like this one, which is a similar action to the 7'4" crankbait rod, but it's a couple of inches shorter. It's 7'2".
Yep.
You know, we've got I guess those options there for the guys that have those, as you say. Yes, it might have been designed for this, but they've found that little combination of reel, lure, line that works for them. And I guess we've listened to all of that and put it into the brand new range of Infeet rods.
Well, that's cool. I'm looking forward to the trade-in because, as I said earlier, I didn't think you could get me to get everything I wanted out of one stable, and you've done it. And I think that's great. I'm looking forward to those improvements, and I challenge anyone to go through any of my live streams for the last 3 years and pick me using a rod which isn't an Infeet. My theory is if you can keep all in the one stable, you know what technique the right rod is for, you're going to have a much better time when you're out there fishing.
Yeah, and that's